Welcome to Nasdaq TradeTalks, where we meet with the top thought leaders and strategists in emerging technologies, digital assets, a regulatory landscape, and capital markets. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, and joining me on the desk at the Nasdaq market site is Linda Royer, CEO of VectorVest, Lule Demmissie, CEO of the U.S. at eToro, and Brie Williams, Head of Practice Management at State Street Global Advisors. We're here to discuss how technology is reshaping investing by making markets and financial literacy more accessible. Ladies, it's great to have everyone at the table. Welcome to TradeTalks. Welcome to MarketSite. Let's go around the horn here quickly. Linda, tell us about VectorVest and your passion for investing.
Yeah, VectorVest was created about 36 years ago with the end user in mind. So the average investor, we want to give them the information and the data they need to really make a difference in their portfolio returns. We tell you what to buy, and when to sell. We have created a community of investors to help each other learn from each other. And we want to help just the average everyday Joe level up. Institutional investing is a very real thing, and it's our way of combating that. But it was created to help an individual investor.
Right, and Lule, give us an overview of eToro. I mean, I've been covering you for quite some time now. I know financial literacy is a passion of yours.
Yeah, so eToro is what's called a social trading platform. So everything about the experience is based on social interaction with the 32 million users we have globally. We're in about 100 different countries. And our entire platform is designed really to help you practice investing through our virtual trading platform, and then actually put skin in the game and begin investing and be part of that community of investors to share ideas and sort of level up, as you say, to make you a better investor.
Right, and Brie, tell us about your role at State Street Global Advisors.
Sure, so we're a global asset manager, and my team does cover a wealth management client set, and that includes the clients that they serve. So for today's conversation, we're really about being the voice of that end investor to enable an experience that allows them to be included in the decision-making process and receive the information in a way that empowers them to manage their financial life.
Right, and I think, Linda, the first question is when you think about investing, there's just so much to consider. So how does one get started investing in the market?
Yeah, I think it's all about deciding what their objectives are. You know, we believe that there's a few reasons for investing. One is to just create the life you want, to become financially free, to make the decisions that you want for your family, your career choices. It's a way to make sure that you have enough funds to do what you want to do. You want to secure retirement that is exactly what you want, where you want to live, what you want to do with it. And financial freedom is the reason for investing.
Yeah, and Lule, we've seen over the past 2 to 3 years, certainly through the pandemic, that companies are dedicated to democratization of finance. Have you found success there? Where do you see the industry going?
Yeah, I mean, I think we pulled forward at least 10 years of individual investor growth into pandemic period, and so it was a really huge growth rate. And what we were scared of, frankly, was that they would all go away, and not because of the business implications alone, but because investing is so important, an essential part of having assets to be able to close gaps, right? But they didn't. They stuck around, and they changed their behavior slightly. They kept some of their risk profile higher, at least where we see it. I mean, our demographic is millennial or younger. They adopted options. You saw a huge run on futures on other platforms, and so the risk appetite didn't reduce after what happened, and they kept going in terms of also being long-term investors.
Right. But what we've learned, though, is those investors that came into the market during the pandemic didn't have the information or weren't as educated as they needed to be. So the social platform that eToro is putting forth is a great place for them to learn. At the same time, they need to be educated. You can't get into the market and put everything you have in there and then just expect to know what to do and when to buy and sell. You've got to have that information.
Right, because of course it's such an emotional process when you learn to invest. And Brie, this is what I think is interesting when you think about technology, even on the rise in the wealth management space, how it's reshaping the industry, but it also doesn't cut out the human either. And I think that's important when it comes to financial education and literacy and advising clients.
I would agree. It's the best of both worlds. And it's not about technology taking the place of a financial advisor. the context for what your unique path is, your situation is bespoke to you and your family. The information that exists on these different platforms is important because it provides access, which gives you the information you may be looking for, but then when you have the context from a financial advisor, that's where the guidance and the advice comes in, so the decision making becomes this collaborative process. And I think that's where technology becomes a superpower for the financial advisor and the investor, because they can use this team-based approach to leverage the information, making it easier, more accessible, and an engaging way to have a relationship with your money.
And Lily, what role does social media play as it relates to financial literacy? And are there any concerns around being a influencer and a better presenter of said information versus actually having the background? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I think it's always important to think of moral hazards when whether it's influencers or not having enough knowledge. But something fundamental happened in the last 10 years. It wasn't just that we have fractional shares or commission free. The fundamental shift is that there's an entire generation of investors now, as I said, millennials or younger, who believe in their community, their social network, their social, who they follow, not necessarily just finfluencers, but communities that they follow, being a primary place where they get insight and a feeling of community around investing from. That is a fundamental shift from the sort of like the parental sort of advisor customer sort of logic. And I think there's room enough for all of that, but that fundamental shift I think is not going away. The feeling of community rather than just individual expertise in terms of what
That's a great point. So you can follow, let's say, a sports star, and if they say to you, investing is so important, you need to do X, Y, Z, that in theory, through that social interaction, will perhaps spur them to
Or more importantly, I might follow another 100 investors like me who our conversation is what actually governs what I do. And that is actually more interesting than one singular influencer.
Yeah, it speeds up the ability to learn investing. Investing takes, as you mentioned, the emotional part of it is, even as an experienced investor, you're constantly pushing down your gut, right? Your gut's telling you to sell this stock or whatever, and you're pushing it down. Well, the opportunity for community gets you a vetting system.
Exactly.
It allows you to align yourself with other like-minded investors and learn much quicker than you would as an individual investor.
I think there's one caution though to that is you want to make sure, because investing is a human endeavor. So we all have bias around the type of information that we tend to lean into. So you need to have some rationale with the emotionals, the EQ and the IQ, to get you the objective insight to help you make a qualified decision that is a healthy one for you. Because you can easily cultivate on your social feeds, information people, platforms that lean into what you want to hear, need to hear, and we just have to make sure that we stay a little bit closer to the middle to ensure that the information has the relevance to your situation.
What happened with GameStop a couple of years ago is a perfect example of that.
A couple of weeks ago.
Well, even, yeah. But a couple of years ago when the Reddit craze happened with GameStop, it sent people into pandemonium. So you've got to have that objective advice. That's where VectorVest comes in.
So, okay, so Linda, here's the question here. What's the difference between data and information?
Data is a commodity. You can get it anywhere from any free website. It's available to you everywhere. What VectorVest does is it pulls that data in and puts it through proprietary algorithms that then provide data that you then act on. So you want somebody who looks at book value and earnings and return on total capital. You don't want to spend your time and your days looking through that information. You want somebody who's going to say, this is a stock that is good for speculative investors, conservative investors, aggressive investors. You also want a way to create a trading plan that then takes you through. So in those drawdown moments, you're not guessing what you should be doing. You absolutely have that plan before you invest.
Right. Well, I also think there's a distinction between trading and investing as well. I mean, it's not that it's two very different mindsets, but of course you want to think about price, you want to think about the capital that you have, you want to think about your time horizon, and trading's different than investing.
It absolutely is, and I think in that case you have goals that are in your short-term bucket and your long-term bucket. And when you think about how much liquidity do you need in the next 1 to 3 years, that can be in your short-term space. But as you think towards your longer-term goals, and all investors, where we're talking about millennials to boomers, I'm going to bring in Gen Z into that group as well. Even though it's far away for the younger end of the spectrum, retirement security is on their top goal list. So that's a longer term perspective. So they're not going to be trading quickly and in short-term mindset for something that's 40 years away. But they do have to think about a balanced and a diversified portfolio that will survive the ups and downs of markets for that long term.
Right, and like, are there demographics or communities, we're sitting here talking about democratization to financial access, are there underserved communities that you believe are being overlooked, and how are you looking to solve for that?
So I think that the first realm of sort of inclusion is representation, and do I see myself in the picture, right? And then the second realm is changing the data behind it, right? So that making sure there is actually inclusion in the actual data of people participating. We just did a recent study, which is really interesting, which is like 60% of any demographic. We actually did a demographic study, so we asked women, we asked people of color, different races, different ages, and 60% of them said, I see myself when I see in the mirror an investor. That is a revolution in America. Regardless of what the data says, that is an absolute earthquake of a revolution that people are starting to see themselves. That is the first step. You cannot be what you don't see. So I think that after you do the representation, which has to persist, it has to constantly persist, is the issue of feeling that I can also invest in a way that meets my community language, my community needs, right? Community at the end of the day is identity, right? And so the more that community becomes more diverse, the more that community then speaks to many types of investors. And so that's what we're seeing, is that the breadth of community is getting more diverse, which we think will bring in even more diverse people.
Yeah, which I think is a great point that you make, because Brie, you also want to think as an advisor, what are my clients asking for? Because it's not like there's a black box and you fit everyone's strategy into that. It's really not a one-size-fits-all situation. Whether you're thinking of generational wealth, perhaps you're the first person to build wealth, perhaps there's multiple generations living within your home. It does have to be customized. I would imagine clients are looking for that.
They are, and it's a unique journey to the bottom line. I mean, there are similarities. It's one of the benefits of creating a segmentation strategy, but you have to really know the individual that you're supporting and where they are on that financial journey, and that their tendencies towards their ways of engagement. So technology is a must-have for young Gen X and millennial investors, and they are looking for that in their provider's platform. Has to be a seamless part of the experience. You also have this rise of what's called a hybrid investor, where they have this duality nature of wanting the personalized advice, so they have a traditional financial advisor relationship, plus they have a relationship with a self-directed investment platform or a robo-advisor. And they like the best of both worlds because it gives them a sense of control, they feel more secure, but they enjoy and appreciate the context and the wealth management services that an advisor can provide as their journey grows more complex.
Yeah, Linda, are you seeing that as well at VectorVest, developing that community in the sense of education around it? I mean, there's a lot of investors who started in the middle of the pandemic, and perhaps they only saw stocks go from the bottom left to the top right. And, for all intents and purposes, we did have a period of volatility there.
Absolutely, and so community is key to that, right? So we've developed some coaching rooms where 24 hours a day there's an opportunity for people to come into that room, talk with each other, talk about their risk-reward ratios. Is it appropriate for where we're at in the marketplace? Whether the market timing guidance is appropriate for what we're seeing in the marketplace. And they love those coaching rooms. They're getting in there, they're talking to our coaches, but they're also talking with each other and allowing probably their thinking to be stretched in ways they've never had before. So they're learning quicker than ever because they have the breadth of experience from each other.
Yeah. Lule, do you think the industry is doing enough to foster that in terms of bringing the next gen advisor or the next gen of financial professionals as well as clients? Because we're sitting around here and it's all women at the table having this conversation. Well, why not? Right?
Yeah,
we are, when I look in the mirror, this is what I see is a professional female investor, right? So do you think the industry is doing enough or starting to do enough or making some inroads?
I think it's making inroads. I don't think it's possible to really make a big dent until we have representation.
Right.
It's just, it's not a, it can't be sort of like a, Black History Month event. It has to really be sort of how you run the business, right? Or a Pride event, right? So in that sense, I feel like as long as we keep an eye towards representation, I think the rest will start having a ricochet effect on it. So I don't, when you look at sort of certain asset classes, it's made more gains just because of the people in it, right? So, you look at crypto and it's the most diverse diversely owned asset class. Whatever you might feel of crypto, it is the most diversely owned asset class in history of alternative assets in America. And why is that? Because culture and representation first led, and then other people felt comfortable coming in. And so I do think that if we keep doing that, where we have community and culture that is embracing, it will start having the difference in the numbers.
Yeah.
But I also think that the world's demanding it. So it's going to have to come to fruition. And companies that are not embracing community in investing are going to have to. Because the world is changing, and our millennial generation, they want community. And so I think that the companies that don't do that will go by the way of Blockbuster. They just won't evolve.
I wholeheartedly agree with that.
I was going to say, I haven't heard that name in a while, but I mean, even in wealth management, where there has been a stigma of, like your grandfather was the investment advisor, I think with technology, how it's transforming the space, I think that's interesting for the next gen advisor. I think that makes them more prone to look at the industry as a career, because you're not, behind a desk and doing all the admin work. You can focus on being empathetic, being a coach, focusing on the investing process.
Right, so it's a double whammy for both the advisor community and the investor community, because as investors, you have a democratized process that can invite you in, because you have a lot more choice for how you can be the investor directly. There's no more intermediary that you have to go through. But as things become more challenging, that's where the financial advisor career path or your partner in your financial life can thrive, because they're going to help provide the context that's unique to you and your situation, so you can maximize what you have to work with. And the tools from technology, whether it's a calculator, a financial planning software, that enables that organic activity that creates action that's necessary to progress. So it creates this experiential learning and this experience itself in how you can feel empowered as an individual to own your worth. And for the financial advisor, it's a deeper relationship, because there are more exchanges in different mediums for them to progress the relationship, not just the financial path.
Yeah, I think, Linda, the tools and the platforms that are available now, let's say, 20, 25 years ago when I first got into the business, I mean, they didn't even exist for us on the institutional desk, right? I mean, consumers just have so much choice.
Absolutely, and that's a good thing, right? But even institutions now are embracing technology and giving, we've had more nurturing of our financial advisor community that subscribes to VectorVest than ever before. They're being able to load it on their business computers, where 25 years ago, I would get calls from financial advisors and they would say, how do we get VectorVest? I can't load it. I'm with Morgan Stanley. I can't load it on my computer. Now they're able to be very open to advice and technology from other companies. So it's
because they're not stuck selling the same product, right?
Absolutely, or the same list of stocks or whatever. But what I love about it is it gives them the opportunity then to work with a family over multi-generations, where before, if grandpa wasn't happy, then the grandkids are going to have no hope of working with that person. Today, embracing technology, embracing a product like VectorVest for a financial advisor allows them then more time to get to know the family, get to know what they're looking at over generations, and get to know the younger people as well.
And I also think, with the magic of software, and then eventually now the magic of sort of like virtual reality and other things that'll come in. So like when you log into your eToro account, you see what the insiders are doing, what the hedge funds are doing. Is there negative sentiment? What's the ESG score on something? What's the PE ratio? In like literally 2 seconds. Because the visual effect has also made it easy for you to synthesize all of that. And that's the kind of stuff, in the old days, I used to be a financial advisor, that the financial advisor would pretty up in a document and give up, right? And so I do think that now the presence of the human, whether it's an advisor or a community, is both an emotional as well as an intellectual sort of exchange. But it's not about data and information. That's already is getting solved with the beauty of data being available and user experiences making it easy to digest.
Yeah.
Well, that hasn't changed the personal benchmark, which is the objective. your outcome, and that orientation is your North Star as an investor, as it is for the financial advisor. So the amount of choices can be a little bit overwhelming these days. So how do we help as an industry simplify, make it easy to understand, easy if you want to do asset consolidation and work with a primary provider, or if you want to live in both worlds with that direct platform and a financial advisor. How can you manage the money on terms that are accessible to you in a way that isn't about having to know everything all at one time, because it's not possible.
Right, well, choice is always a good thing. Appreciate everyone's insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me from MarketSite. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.